Millionaire saw his maid celebrate her birthday alone and asked her, "Will you share your wish?" The clock in the vast kitchen of the seaside mansion struck 9:30 p.m. Selina had just finished washing the dinner dishes and set the dish towel down on the table. Her hands, hardened after years of work, trembled slightly as they brushed against the fragile porcelain. Dishes so expensive that a single piece cost more than 3 months of her salary. The mansion lay in silence, broken only by the steady hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. Adrian had left early that morning for an important meeting in the city, and, as usual, would return very late. The other staff had long gone home, leaving Selina alone in this space of luxury that felt so alien to her. She removed her dark blue apron, hung it neatly on the hook, and sighed. Today was her birthday, a day that should have been filled with flowers, laughter, and warm embraces. Yet, as in all the years before, her birthday slipped quietly by, marked only by her presence in the small room at the end of the hall. Selina stepped into her modest quarters, just a single bed, a small wooden table, and the crucifix on the wall left by her grandmother. She opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out a small tin box holding all her savings. Crumpled bills and a few coins jingled as she counted them once more. Enough to buy a single cupcake at Mr. Miller's bakery a few streets away. She changed out of her uniform into an old olive-green dress, draped a thin shawl that had once belonged to her mother over her shoulders. The bathroom mirror reflected the image of a young woman worn by exhaustion, dark circles shadowing her sleepless eyes. Selina whispered softly to her own reflection, "Happy birthday, Selina." A faint smile flickered, never reaching her eyes. The Miami night was warm and damp. Stepping out the back door, she walked along the quiet cobblestone street, flanked by elegant mansions with tall fences and carefully tended gardens. The scent of the sea mingled with jasmine from the courtyards, stirring memories of childhood birthdays, her mother baking a small chocolate cake, adorning it with wildflowers, and singing with her father. But that ended the day her parents died in an accident, just as she turned 18. Since then, she had lived entirely alone, no siblings, no close relatives. So alone that even on her most special day, she was her only witness. Mr. Miller's bakery was nearly closed when Selina arrived. The elderly baker, silver-haired and warm-smiled, looked up. "Good evening, Selina. Why so late?" She blushed and pointed at the lone vanilla cupcake left in the display case. "Today is my birthday." His face lit up with affection. "Oh, my dear, why didn't you say so? I would have prepared something special." Selina shook her head quickly, not wanting to trouble him. Mr. Miller wrapped the cake with care, then secretly slipped in a small white candle. "Here, so you can make a wish." Clutching the small box to her chest, Selina returned to the mansion. The kitchen was dark, lit only by moonlight spilling through the window. She placed the cupcake on the table, lit the candle. The tiny flame glowed, casting a tender light across her face. Selina closed her eyes and whispered the wish she had made every year for the past decade. "I wish I didn't have to be alone anymore." A single tear slid down her cheek as she blew out the candle. Darkness reclaimed the kitchen, leaving only the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. She cut the first piece of cake, the sweet taste of vanilla blending with the salt of her tears. Selina still sat there, alone in the vast kitchen, savoring each small bite of cake as if it were an entire grand feast. The soft clink of the spoon against the plate echoed in the silence, blending with the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. She had no idea that, at that very moment, just outside the mansion gates, a luxury car had come to a stop. The owner of the house, Adrian Cross, was returning after an exhausting day. The sleek black luxury car came to a smooth stop in front of the mansion gates. Adrian Cross stepped out, loosening his tie and drawing in a deep breath, trying to release the pressure after 12 grueling hours of negotiations. He was all too familiar with coming home late to a vast house where silence always blanketed every corner. But tonight, something felt different. As he walked up the stone path, Adrian caught a faint glimmer of light from the kitchen window. It wasn't steady, but flickering, like a small flame wavering. He frowned. All the staff were supposed to have left hours ago. Who could still be in the kitchen at this hour? Curiosity drew him around the side path of the house. The sea breeze carried with it the scent of jasmine from the garden. His footsteps crunched softly on the gravel, deliberately slow so as not to make a sound. Nearing the window, Adrian leaned slightly to glance inside. His heart froze. At the wide kitchen table, Selina sat silently in front of a tiny cupcake with a candle still smoking. The faint curl of smoke rose like a symbol of her fading hope. A single tear glistened under the moonlight, carving a line of solitude across her face. In that moment, Adrian felt as though he had stumbled into the most private part of her life, a world no one had ever witnessed. He stood frozen, rooted to the spot. The image struck him straight in the heart. A simple woman in a lavish kitchen, celebrating her birthday alone with a tiny cake. For years, Adrian had known Selina only as the diligent, reserved housekeeper who kept everything flawless. He had never once considered the person behind that uniform. A strange sensation welled up in his chest, part sorrow, part guilt. How could he have lived under the same roof for 6 years without ever asking her about her family, her dreams, or even her birthday? He suddenly realized that both he and Selina were carrying the same emptiness, the only difference being that he had chosen to imprison himself after tragedy, while she had been forced to endure. Adrian lingered there for a long while, watching Selina cut the cupcake into small bites, eating slowly in silence. To him, that moment was no less than a photograph etched into memory, a scene that would stay with him forever. And it was then he understood. His wealth meant nothing if it could not be shared with another heart. Adrian stood silently outside the window for a long while. In his heart, an indescribable feeling rose, part sorrow, part regret. He knew he could not turn away, as if he had seen nothing. Taking a deep breath, Adrian walked slowly toward the back door. The creak of the hinges made Selina startle. She quickly stood up, hurriedly wiping away the tears still clinging to her cheek. Mr. Cross, I didn't know you had returned," she stammered, her voice trembling. Adrian gently closed the door behind him, his eyes soft in a way so unlike his usual coldness. "Don't worry, Selina," he said quietly, pausing for a few seconds as if searching for words. His gaze shifted to the half-eaten cupcake on the table. "Today, it's your birthday, isn't it?" Selina lowered her head, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her dress. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry for using the kitchen for something personal. I'll clean everything right away." Adrian stepped closer, his voice warmer. "There's no need to apologize. This is your home, too. And no one should spend their birthday alone." Those words made Selina look up, her swollen red eyes filled with astonishment. In 6 years, working under the same roof, she had never heard her employer speak with such closeness. The air in the kitchen grew heavy, but it was no longer cold. Adrian removed his suit jacket, laid it over a chair, then gestured to the seat across from her. "Would you allow me to sit with you?" Selina's eyes widened. I don't think it's appropriate, sir. After all, I'm only a servant." Adrian shook his head slightly, cutting her off. "Tonight, don't call me Mr. Cross, call me Adrian. And tonight, I'm not your master, just a man, who also feels far too lonely." Those sincere words swept over Selina's heart like a wave. She remained silent for a moment, then gave a small nod. Adrian sat down and the two of them exchanged hesitant glances across a distance that felt both near and unfamiliar. To break the tension, Adrian gave a faint smile. "How old are you?" Selina answered softly. 29. He nodded, then offered a sad smile. "I'm 45. Last month, on my birthday, I sat alone in my office until late at night. No one remembered, no one congratulated me." Selina's eyes softened. For the first time, she saw that behind his powerful exterior lay a heart that had also been neglected. "That's awful," she whispered. "No one should spend their birthday alone." A rare, genuine smile flickered across Adrian's lips. He looked at Selina, then said gently, "Then share a piece of cake with me, so I won't have to say I missed your birthday." Blushing, Selina cut a small piece of the cupcake and slid it toward him. Their fingers brushed when she handed him the plastic fork. A small spark passed between them, leaving both frozen in silence. Adrian tasted the cake, closing his eyes as though savoring something truly precious. "It's delicious." Selina looked at him, her eyes filled with both confusion and a stirring she could not name. After the moment of sharing the cupcake, the air in the kitchen seemed to soften. Selina could still feel her heart racing while Adrian sat quietly, his eyes never leaving her face. He tilted his head slightly, his voice low but sincere. "Selina, for 6 years you've done so much for this house, for me, but I realize I've never once asked you anything about yourself." Selina looked flustered, her hands clasping tightly together on the table. "Sir, there really isn't much to tell. I'm just an ordinary woman, doing the work I need to survive." Adrian shook his head, his gaze sharp yet warm. "No, every person has a story, and I want to hear yours." Those words left Selina speechless. All these years, she had grown used to being invisible, nothing more than the diligent hands that kept everything clean and orderly. No one had ever cared about anything beyond the tasks she performed. After a brief hesitation, she sighed. "I was born in a small town near the border. My parents owned a little grocery store. We weren't wealthy, but I was happy. On every birthday, my mother would bake me a small cake, and my father would sing with his deep, gentle voice." Her voice caught as she spoke of her parents. Adrian listened without interruption, his eyes reflecting quiet empathy. Swallowing her tears, Selina continued. "When I turned 18, they were in a car accident. I lost both of them at once. After that, I sold the store, left town, and since then, I've been alone." Silence filled the kitchen, broken only by the distant sound of waves carrying the weight of her sorrow. Adrian drew in a deep breath, his voice lowering. "I lost someone I loved, too. 3 years ago, my wife passed away. Since then, I've lived like a shadow in this house." Selina lifted her gaze, and their eyes met. Two abandoned souls suddenly recognized the reflection of themselves in each other. "And what about dreams?" he asked gently. "What do you wish for your future?" Selina blinked, surprised. No one had ever asked her that before. I once dreamed of having a family," she said softly. "A little home, a husband who loved me, maybe 1 or 2 children. But I'm 29 now, and—" "29 is not old at all," Adrian interrupted firmly. "You still have your whole life ahead of you." "Selina?" Adrian slowly placed his sun-browned hand on the wooden table, the tips of his fingers lightly brushing the back of her hand. "For the past 3 years, I've felt nothing. I've existed like a shadow, living like a soulless machine. But tonight, seeing you light a candle for yourself, hearing you speak of such small wishes, witnessing the strength you carry, something inside me woke up." Selina's whole body went weak, her heart pounding wildly. What are you saying?" she blurted out, though deep down she already knew the answer. Adrian's eyes never left her, steady and sincere. "I love you." Selina recoiled, snatching her hand away and springing to her feet, backing against the wall. "You can't say that. You're Adrian Herrera, the head of an entire empire, and I'm just a servant." Adrian rose too, but kept a respectful distance. His voice was rough but resolute. "Tonight I'm not a chairman, not any title. I'm just a man who has realized he's found something he thought no longer existed." Tears welled up in Selina's eyes, glistening at the corners. "That can't be. You must be joking. Or maybe you drank too much at the meeting." Adrian stepped closer, then stopped when he saw the fear in her gaze. "Selina, look at me. Do I seem drunk? Do I seem like I'm joking with you?" She slid down the wall, sitting on the floor with a trembling voice. "For 6 years, you've never spoken more than 10 words to me. And now you say you have feelings?" Adrian lowered himself to the floor opposite her, keeping his distance as though afraid of frightening her further. "You're right. That's what I'm most ashamed of. I was blinded by my own grief, so blind I couldn't see the light in you. I let emptiness consume me, forgetting your kindness and patience." Selina wiped her tears, whispering, "But you once had a beautiful, accomplished wife, someone of your world. Compared to her, how could I?" Adrian sighed, his eyes reflecting a distant sorrow. "Isabella was exactly as you said. But that marriage was built on family expectations, on glossy photos in the press. I did love her, but I never knew this feeling, the calm, the quiet peace in my heart, that only a few hours with you have given me." "So, what are you feeling now?" Selina whispered. "Peace," Adrian answered without hesitation. "For the first time in 3 years, my mind is free of contracts, money, responsibilities. There is only you, only this moment." Those words flowed into Selina's long-buried wounds like warm water, but they also stirred her fear. Adrian extended his hand slowly, giving her time to refuse. Selina trembled, then finally placed her hand in his. "Your hands are rough from labor," Adrian whispered, "but to me they're the most beautiful hands I've ever touched." "Why?" Selina murmured. "Because they work with honesty, because they care, because they've turned this cold house into a home I had forgotten." Selina felt the walls around her heart crumbling piece by piece. "Sir." "Just call me Adrian," he gently cut in. "At least tonight, call me that." "Adrian." The name felt both strange and sweet on her lips. "And tomorrow? When the sun rises, you'll be the master again, and I'll still be the servant?" "I don't know," Adrian admitted. "I only know I don't want to return to the hollow man I was this morning." Their eyes locked, each seeing in the other wounds identical to their own. In that fragile moment, as if compelled by an invisible thread, Adrian leaned down and pressed a tender, trembling kiss to her lips, opening a new path, where two hearts that had seemed lifeless began to find their rhythm once more. After that sweet kiss, Adrian wished her good night and returned to his room. Yet inside both of them, questions without answers surged like an undertow. The next day, Selina went about her work as usual, but her mind kept drifting back to that kiss in the kitchen the night before. The way Adrian had looked at her, not as a master to a servant, but as a man who truly wanted to listen, made her heart waver, and that very feeling frightened her. During her break, Selina sat alone by the window of her small room. She whispered, "Who am I? Just a housekeeper. He is Adrian Cross, a wealthy businessman, with an entire world that doesn't belong to me." Those words stood like a wall between them. Selina knew the distance was not only about money, but also status, education, and the scrutiny of society. She trembled at the thought that if she allowed her heart to soften, the cost could be everything: her job, her small measure of stability, even her self-respect. That evening, when Adrian happened to meet her in the hallway, he gave a gentle smile and asked, "How was your day, Selina?" Such a simple question left her flustered. She quickly replied, "Just the same as always, sir." He was about to continue speaking, but her guarded eyes made him pause. Adrian realized there was a fear binding Selina, and he knew that if he wanted to reach her heart, he would have to break through that wall. That night, Selina lay restless. The image of Adrian in the kitchen, his sincere gaze, his words still echoed in her mind. No one should spend their birthday alone. Part of her longed to believe, yet another part was afraid. What if it was only a moment of weakness for him? What if tomorrow he forgets it all? She buried her face in the pillow, tears welling up. The fear of being hurt weighed heavier than hope. In the days that followed, Selina tried to return to her normal rhythm of life. She woke early, cleaned, and prepared breakfast as if nothing had happened. Yet deep inside, the image of Adrian with those warm eyes from that night continued to haunt her. Adrian, on the other hand, did not rush. He understood that any pressure would only make Selina withdraw further. Instead, he began with small actions, simple yet full of meaning. On Monday morning, when Selina stepped into the library to dust, she was surprised to find a white rose placed on the bookshelf, right where she usually started her work. There was no note, but she knew exactly who had left it. Selina smiled softly, then quickly tucked the flower into her apron, as if hiding a secret just for herself. The next day, when she returned to her room after work, she found a slim book neatly placed on her table. Poems of the Heart by a classical author. On the first page was his familiar handwriting. "For the woman who brought poetry back into my life." Selina clutched the book to her chest, tears brimming in her eyes. On Wednesday, a small note lay beside the coffee pot in the kitchen. "Your coffee makes my mornings worth waking up for. Thank you." Just a few simple words, yet Selina's heart trembled as she read them. She began to realize Adrian was not only speaking with words, he was using these small gestures to prove that he truly saw her, not as an employee, but as a human being worthy of being cherished. Each time, Selina felt both touched and afraid. Her heart longed to open, but her reason reminded her that the distance between them was too great. Even so, with every small gesture Adrian made, a fragile hope began to take root in her heart, that perhaps she was no longer completely invisible in this house. That Friday, Adrian hosted a small luncheon at the mansion to discuss the expansion of a resort project with a few foreign partners. Selina, as always, quietly prepared and served, doing her best to make herself as invisible as possible. The dining room gleamed with natural light, crystal glasses sparkling, the air filled with talk of money, contracts, and profits. Selina calmly poured wine, placing dishes in front of each guest, until one of the guests, a tall American man, turned to a colleague and made a remark in English that seemed harmless at first, but carried sharp contempt. "These people are only good for cleaning and serving. They don't understand real business." Selina heard every word. Her heart tightened, but by habit she lowered her head, pretending not to understand. Adrian, seated at the head of the table, froze. His face darkened, his gaze turning razor-sharp. He set his glass down, his voice low but filled with authority. "Excuse me." The entire table fell silent. Adrian fixed his eyes on the man who had spoken. "I don't allow disrespectful comments about my staff in my house." The man flushed, fumbling for words. But Adrian did not stop, leaning slightly forward. His voice rang clear and resolute. "Selina is not just staff. She is the reason this house runs better than most companies. She is intelligent, capable, and far more valuable than you realize." Selina stood frozen, the tray trembling in her hands. She had never imagined there would be a day she'd be defended like this, in front of such powerful people. Adrian continued, his tone firm as a warning. "Perhaps you should reconsider who you choose to disrespect." A heavy silence fell. The other guests remained quiet, some lowering their eyes. That lunch ended early, the partners leaving with embarrassed expressions. Selina stayed where she was, her eyes brimming with tears. When the room was finally empty, except for the two of them, she whispered, "You shouldn't have done that. You could lose an important contract." Adrian loosened his tie, his gaze steady yet warm. "Selina, listen to me. No deal in this world is worth more than your dignity. I will never allow anyone to belittle you, especially not in this house." Selina's tears spilled over. All the defenses she had built began to crumble. For the first time she saw clearly. Adrian was not just a wealthy master, but a man willing to stand up for her, no matter the cost. Her heart trembled, and in that moment, Selina knew that tiny seed had begun to grow into something far greater. After the luncheon ended and the guests had gone, the mansion fell into a silence that felt heavier than usual. Selina stood in the dining room, her hands trembling, her heart still echoing with Adrian's words. "No deal is worth more than your dignity." The house was quiet, but inside her chest, a storm was raging. She lifted her gaze toward him. Adrian was loosening his tie, his eyes strangely gentle, stripped of the coldness she had always known. The faint smile that flickered on his lips made her heart tighten. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I would do it again if I had to," Adrian replied, stepping closer. Selina clenched her hands together, fear and longing tearing through her chest. Tears welled up without warning. "Why do you care about me so much? I'm just a servant, and you are Adrian Cross, a man who holds the whole world in his hands." Adrian stopped, locking his gaze on her tear-filled eyes. His voice was rough, hoarse. "Because I've been dead inside for so long, but when I saw you, I felt alive again." Selina's chest rose and fell. Shaking, she stepped forward and clung to him, as if letting go would mean losing him forever. "You don't understand." Her voice broke like glass. "I love you so much I can hardly breathe. Every night I see you, even when I force myself to forget. You come back, in my dreams, in my silence, in every corner of my heart." Adrian held her tightly against him, his voice thick with emotion. "Selina, you deserve to be loved. So, will you give us a chance?" Selina drew in a deep breath, like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into fate's river. "Yes, I want to try. I want to see how far this love can take us." Adrian smiled, the brightest smile he had worn in 3 long years of darkness. "I promise to care for you, respect you, and love you the way you deserve. I swear it, Selina." Before he could say more, Selina lifted her face, her trembling lips finding his. The kiss began as soft as a whisper, then quickly ignited into a blazing fire. Adrian responded, holding her tightly, as if he could melt them both into one. That night, they were no longer master and servant, no longer 2 distant worlds. They were only 2 hearts that had longed for each other for too long. In Adrian's arms, Selina discovered a new breath within herself, and Adrian, for the first time in years, felt his heart truly beat again. Beneath the moonlight streaming through the curtains, they gave each other everything: fear, desire, and a love that could no longer be restrained. That night, for the first time in many years, neither Adrian nor Selina was alone. 2 years had passed since the night Adrian and Selina first sat together in the kitchen with that tiny cupcake. Their lives had changed quietly, yet profoundly. Selina still kept her work as the housekeeper, still wore her uniform every day, still slept in the small room behind the house. But within the cold walls of the mansion, something warm had begun to blossom. They did not make their relationship public. Adrian understood that Selina still carried caution and fear within her. So he was patient, offering her only private moments: a morning coffee shared in the kitchen, a short conversation by the porch, a fleeting touch of hands as he handed her a cup of tea. September returned, and with it, Selina's birthday. Adrian had been preparing for weeks. He did not want a lavish party that would make her feel out of place. He wanted a day that truly belonged to her, a day where Selina would feel loved, cherished. He called Carmen, the retired cook, asking her to prepare the dishes that reminded Selina of her childhood. He went to the old florist in town and ordered every jasmine and bougainvillea to decorate the garden behind the mansion. And most importantly, Adrian visited the town's most renowned baker and commissioned a special cake, 3 tiers, crowned with a sugar-crafted miniature of the red brick house where Selina had grown up. That evening, when Selina stepped into the garden, she froze. Under the golden twinkle of lights, the entire garden had been transformed into a small paradise. The sweet fragrance of jasmine filled the air, mingled with the vibrant purple of bougainvillea. The few familiar faces Adrian had invited, Carmen, the florist, and a handful of trusted staff, were all there, smiling warmly to greet her. "Happy birthday, Selina!" the chorus rang out, and her eyes immediately blurred with tears. Not in years had she been welcomed into such a warm, full-hearted celebration of her birthday. But the surprise was not over. As everyone stepped back, leaving space at the center of the garden, Adrian walked forward, holding a small velvet box of deep blue. He knelt before Selina. "Selina Hart," he said, his voice trembling but steady. "A year ago, I saw you sitting alone with a little cake and a fading candle. That night, my heart awakened. From that moment, I knew I never wanted to miss another day without you." Adrian opened the box, revealing a ring, simple yet exquisitely crafted. "Selina, will you sit by my side, not just for one dinner, not just for one birthday, but for the rest of our lives? Will you be my wife, my partner, and the only love of my life?" The garden fell silent. Selina raised her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. All her fears, the years of loneliness, every doubt she had carried, in that instant they melted away. She nodded softly, whispering, "Yes, I will." Applause and cheers erupted throughout the garden. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. Selina wept in his embrace, but they were tears of pure happiness. That night, under the star-studded Miami sky, 2 souls once lost finally found their true home in each other. 6 months after that fateful birthday, Adrian and Selina's wedding took place on the breezy shores of Miami Beach. There was no extravagance, no hundreds of guests, only the familiar faces who had witnessed their journey. Carmen, the old florist, the baker, and a few loyal staff. Selina wore a simple, pure white wedding dress, her hair adorned with jasmine blossoms. Adrian waited at the end of the flower-strewn aisle, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw her walking toward him. When the priest spoke, his voice rose above the sound of the crashing waves. "Today, before God and these loved ones, 2 souls once lonely are now bound as one." Adrian clasped Selina's hand tightly, his voice deep yet steady. "I promise to love you not only in the easy days, but in the hardest ones too. I promise to be the place you return to when the world feels too heavy." Selina's eyes glistened, her voice trembling yet strong. "I promise to grow with you, to dream with you, and to build a happy family by your side. Every day I will thank God for bringing you into my life." When the priest declared them husband and wife, Adrian bent down and kissed Selina as cheers mingled with the sound of the waves. That happiness was no longer a dream. It had become reality. 5 years later, in a cozy home warmer than the mansion had ever been, Selina decorated a small birthday cake with 2 candles for their daughter Valeria, while Adrian played in the garden with little Samuel, now 3 years old. "Mommy, Daddy said I should plant flowers for you," Valeria shouted gleefully, holding a tiny pot of blossoms. Selena laughed, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. When the whole family gathered to blow out the candles, Adrian whispered in her ear, "Do you remember that first night with the little cupcake? You wished you would never be alone again. And that wish, it came true." Selena nodded, resting her head on his shoulder, whispering, "I'm no longer alone, because I found home in your heart." Outside, the sky blazed with the red of sunset, the ocean waves beating a gentle rhythm as if blessing their love. And within that humble home, Adrian and Selena's simple yet eternal love kept writing its story, one that promised not just happiness for a moment, but a lifetime.